What up, world? Welcome to episode 103 of the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast. Eagles free agency update episode, recap of day one and early recap of day two. It's now 3:13 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon, March 11th, technically day two of NFL free agency. So giving you guys an early recap of what's going on in the Eagles world. Shout out to the Bird Gang, Fly Eagles Fly. And as always, guys, I thank you guys for watching and listening. As always, like, share, and subscribe. You can check the show out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Substack, Patreon, Trovo, and as well as on Podbean. What up, y'all? Looking to get out, spend some time with your loved one, spouse, kids, trying to get to that closest concert or event, not sure how to get to it, then look no further than the number one ticket getter in the world and reseller, StubHub, the number one place in the world for tickets to live events, shows, and concerts. And StubHub is the world's top destination and top ticket buyers and resellers. So if you're definitely looking for tickets to StubHub, definitely check out the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast. I will always have descriptions, links within my description of my videos, where you can definitely get tickets to any of the concerts, sporting events, music events, live shows, tours, whatever it is that you're looking for. StubHub has it. And like I said, if you're definitely looking to get tickets to these events, definitely check out the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast. Love you guys. And as always, StubHub, the number one place in the world for tickets to live events, shows, and concerts. Hopping into this episode, guys, like I said, recapping a lot of what was going on in Eagles land within the past 12 to 24 hours. A lot of big news, a lot of things to touch on. Definitely going to be touching on the C.J. Gardner-Johnson trade, my reaction, what I think of the fallout from that. A lot of people have hit me up early. Seen Twitter was going, Eagles Twitter was going fucking ablaze about the decision with this move, as if Howie Roseman is an incompetent general manager. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. I don't know, but either way, I'll touch on, Josh Sweat's deal, Milton Williams, Isaiah Rodgers, all the Eagles free agent, moves, guys that the Eagles were able to re-sign, and potential moves that I think that will definitely come down the pike for the Philadelphia Eagles going into the 2025 offseason. And as always, guys, getting into this episode, the number one thing that we knew going in, we knew Josh Sweat was going. We knew Milton Williams was going. We didn't know how many other guys would follow, but we had a pretty good idea of, it's a good chance that they're not going to be able to keep everybody. Well, needless to say, they definitely weren't going to be able to keep everybody. Josh Sweat, he signed with the Arizona Cardinals, 4 years, $76.4 million. Congratulations to Josh Sweat, definitely well-deserved. As I've touched on in the previous episode, I kind of felt Josh Sweat was definitely going to leave and get the money. The contractual situation in Philadelphia, they just kind of felt like he wasn't really worth the money that he would have been commanding. He's definitely going to be warranted and needed in Arizona. So shout out to Josh Sweat for that. Milton Williams. This one was a little bit weird because Adam Schefter and early reportings, the indications was that Milton Williams was going to be going to the Carolina Panthers. And then all of a sudden we find out midday that Mike Vrabel swooped right the fuck in and got Milton Williams on a great deal, 4 years, $104 million. He's going to pretty much be the centerpiece of the Patriots defensive line. And that being said, like I said, got to give Milton Williams credit. Definitely deserved that payday. 3rd round pick out of Louisiana Tech. Much deserved. I mean, all these guys from Philadelphia that are leaving to go get contracts, contributing to get a Super Bowl. A lot of them were on prove-it deals last year. We're definitely just trying to compete and get the job done, which is, mission accomplished. So now it's time to go get paid. And I definitely understand this. What I think, is going to be interesting about the Josh Sweat and Milton Williams deals is the contracts themselves are what they are. It's not like the Eagles are going to be on the hook for that. However, what's great about this is the Eagles do recoup 2 third-round compensatory picks for losing Sweat and Williams. So that's 2 third-round picks that they'll get back this year. I believe one that they'll get back this year, one they'll get back in 2026. It's either scenario. Either way, they recoup 2 third-round picks for losing both players. Still up in the air on what they're going to do with Kenny Gainwell. No news with Kenny Gainwell as of yet. Isaiah Rodgers, he left. He went to Minnesota. Good deal in Minnesota, adding to a very solid defensive backfield that Brian Flores is building out there. 2 years, $12 million to go to Minnesota. Darius Slay, which we kind of knew writing was on the wall that he was going to be leaving. There's an agreement in place in Pittsburgh. However, I've read on several different websites and checked through Twitter, there is no contract that is actually in place right now. It is just an agreement in place. However, the way that the contract shapes out, Darius Slay is not going to be on the Eagles roster going to tomorrow. By tomorrow afternoon, when I'll be at work, most of us will probably be at our other jobs. Yeah, you'll definitely be seeing Darius Slay. You definitely will not be on the Eagles roster. So we'll see how everything shapes out with that. Definitely leans like he's going to be signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. However, it's just an agreement in place as of now. Getting to trades, because obviously you guys are definitely waiting for me to touch on that. The C.J. Gardner-Johnson trade. Now, I had to really kind of reshuffle this. And as you'll see here on the screen, I kind of had to touch up some things because I had to really read it 3 or 4 times to really understand what the fuck I was like actually looking at. Because I noticed that this offseason, which is something I'll touch on a little bit later in this episode, about how there's been a lot of trade activity instead of free agent signings. That being said, C.J. Gardner-Johnson was essentially traded to Houston, the Houston Texans, which I think is a great deal for Houston. They need a safety like C.D. Deuce back there. I'm sad to see him go. Second time was a charm. First time he helped us get to the Super Bowl. Second time he helps us secure a victory. Definitely was a playmaker in that defense, was a contributor. But most importantly, they pretty much get offensive lineman Kenyon Green for him. Now, Kenyon Green is a guy that they had already scouted. That pick that they had, that they traded to Houston in that draft that he went in, eventually wound up becoming Jordan Davis for Philadelphia. Kenyon Green was just a guy battled with injuries, never really could get started, really could get going. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen all over Twitter, he had a bad Pro Football Focus grade. I tend not to focus on that too because Mekhi Becton didn't have good grades either up until last year. So this just seems to me that it was a salary dump move. And outside of it being just a salary dump move, it really seems like that the Eagles feel like they can get a guy that they can actually mold. And let's be honest, this is low-key an insurance piece that just in case Mekhi Becton gets swept out of the water, they got somebody they can put in that spot out opposite of Tyler Steen or whoever else they may pick up in the draft or develop. Going a bit further, I don't think I'm not heartbroken by the move because, honestly, got truth. Looking at the contractual side of it, they want to pay Reed Blankenship. I kind of assumed, just looking at it, when you saw Malachi Starks coming out in the draft and you saw Daniel Jeremiah before the combine linking his name, to Philadelphia, the safety out of Georgia, that just seemed like, to me, it made the most sense. Also, too, you have a core in place where you're going to have to pay these guys. You have this team. You just won a Super Bowl with this team, so you know you could win with this team. You want to be able to compete with this team. You don't want to have to break this team up for any reason. So that being said, let's get rid of the excess salary and guys that aren't going to be around for the bulk of this run. And yeah, let's pay the guys that we know we're going to pay, and let's make sure any other guys that we can add on that's willing to be contributors, let's get them in on average solid salaries and deals, and let's make moves. Again, in Howie we trust, man. The man's delivered 2 Super Bowls. At this point, fuck up. As an Eagles fan, sometimes we get spoiled. I think a lot of times there's a lot of Eagles fans that don't really know or understand the contractual bit of it, or that the fact that the Eagles don't really look at it just within the first 2 years. They're looking at it the next 2 to 5 years down the road. And C.J. Gardner-Johnson, unfortunately, guys, he was not a part of the plans 3 years from now. I do see Blankenship being a part of the plans. Another guy that I forgot to mention is Sidney Brown. You have Sidney Brown coming out of Illinois. In 2023, he played sparingly, but when he did play, he was okay for you. He was a hitter, made some plays, was a little rambunctious with tackling, if I can remember correctly. Had that great interception return for a touchdown against Arizona, and that colossal failure late in the year, which was a part of the late collapse for the Eagles in the 2023 season. That being said, though, you still need to see what you can get out of him. And like I said, Malachi Starks. And there's another name out there. Now, there's no guarantee. I'm looking right here now because before I say this, I'm like, yeah, okay, he's still there. I just want to make sure before I said it, his name was still in the market. There's still a possibility the Eagles could possibly get Justin Reed at safety position as well. I don't know, because now that, the market's kind of died down and Javon Holland got paid today. I think it was somewhere around the range of 21 to 24 million, roughly so. But needless to say, that's also a possibility too. So I know a lot of Eagles fans are definitely upset. CD Deuce, has been, vital. He brought an attitude and a swagger to this defense. We all loved it. Bit of a head case, but, you need that in Philly to win. And, he's arguably one of the best free agent acquisitions Philadelphia has ever had as far as a defensive player. I mean, he has like 28 interceptions in the 2 seasons that he was a Philadelphia Eagle, which is just, insane. But nonetheless, it was a move that needed to happen. And we need to give Kenyon Green a chance. I mean, let's be honest. Jeff Stoutland knows what he's doing. If he's requesting to get a guy, that typically means he probably can mold this guy and do something with him. We know how this works in Philadelphia, in the trenches. Wash, rinse, repeat. You get a guy that's a stalwart, you keep him, you pay him, you make sure he stays upright, he's healthy, he's good, and you're still drafting replacements and you're still drafting guys to take his spot within the next 5 to 7 years. That's just how it works. It's just how it works. Wash, rinse, repeat, guys. Another trade that happened, actually that was part of day one, was Kenny Pickett being traded to the Cleveland Browns. Now, I actually like this trade a lot. He was traded for Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and also the Eagles recouped the 2025 fifth-round pick. So definitely was good in that regard. DTR has been a solid quarterback. I think he struggled in Cleveland because of inexperience, not really getting that many reps and touches. Obviously Deshaun Watson was the guy there. We see how that, how that played out, but not really getting that many reps and touches. That definitely played a factor. Team getting injured, not really having any camaraderie with a bunch of those guys. A lot of things went into play. I'm not going to make any excuses for him, but I liked him a lot coming out of UCLA with Chip Kelly. I thought he was a decent quarterback. I like him in his backup role. I think if in Philadelphia, it's known, for years, 20 some odd years, Philly could cultivate a backup quarterback. So interesting to see what he could do. But I definitely like it. I definitely think that he's going to add a different element to this team that's going to help as far as, similar skill set to what Jalen does. Because one thing that that kind of bothered me last year when Kenny Pickett got in, I was very staunch, and you guys kind of remember this. I was very staunch about Tanner McKee starting over Kenny Pickett. Now, in that Cowboys game, it wound up playing out where Kenny Pickett, he played decently, but again, wound up getting concussed, had to leave out the game. Tanner McKee comes in, does a great job, which should have been in the first damn place. That being said, backup quarterback is a crucial position in Philadelphia. You're going to get in at some point. You're going to have to play. You're going to have to win a big game. So I think they can cultivate him. I think they can definitely help him grow. Now, I do think Tanner McKee now becomes the backup because I don't think Dorian Thompson-Robinson is going to come right in and take his job because I don't think he's even equipped to take his job, especially if Tanner McKee's run the offense and he knows the keys, he knows the audibles, he knows the offense. So interesting to see, but good trade nonetheless. And it just gives Kenny Pickett a chance to go somewhere else and get into a different environment too. You helped contribute to a Super Bowl victory for your hometown, team, your favorite team growing up. Now you're in Cleveland where, let's be honest, you're going to be playing with a young guy. Depending on if that young guy gets hurt or how he plays, you may have to get in at some point. So all in all, it works out. And shout out to Kenny Pickett. Shout out to the Browns for making this happen. And let's hope that Dorian Thompson-Robinson Bird gang actually works out. So, but that's it as far as like moves that actually happen. Oh, excuse me. And Oren Burks signed with the Cincinnati Bengals. I definitely want to mention that. Now, as far as guys being retained, guys coming back, we know obviously about Zach Bourne, 3 years, $51 million. I think that was one of the most crucial moves ever because you get a guy who hasn't been in your defense at all. He comes in 1 year and he's an all-pro. That tells me he belongs. So being able to re-sign him and not allow him to walk, pivotal. I love that move. Still up in the air with Mekhi Becton. Not really sure where that's going to go. Like I said, they just kind of traded for a guy that kind of low-key be in that same ilk or mold, and he's younger, so we'll see. Ben Van Sumeren, kind of hope he comes back. Liked him a lot in that fullback role. We'll see. I definitely think he can bring it back on a cheap deal. And then, of course, we all know a couple of days ago they signed Saquon to a 2-year extension, $41.2 million. Essentially keep Saquon here through the 2027-2028 season. I get it. I get it. All these moves need to be made. Again, you're trying to keep the core intact. You just want a Super Bowl with this roster. You definitely want to make sure that you're showing, the fan base, and you're showing the ownership, like, hey, listen, we're not trying to rip it apart. We like what we got, but we need to trim some of this fat, get some other players in here that can definitely contribute, but nonetheless keep this core intact. Because as long as this core is intact, we have a chance to compete and win. So I like it, but definitely still more that needs to be done. We'll definitely see what happens, how everything plays out. Possible moves to be made. We obviously can take Myles Garrett and Max Crosby off the board. They both signed extensions. Harold Landry then signs to the Patriots, so he's off the board. My guess, strictly my guess, just surmising, Trey Hendrickson would be the logical suggestion, but although he's 30 years old, he just had another 17.5 sack season. Is he realistically going to have that in Philadelphia? I don't know. I doubt it. That being said, too, I don't really feel like there's a knee-jerk reaction to make that move. Now, I know people would say, well, we don't have Josh Sweat anymore. But again, most people don't really realize Josh Sweat, outside of the 2022 season with Jonathan Gannon, he was good for anywhere between 6.5 to 8.5 sacks. So not anything necessarily to scoff at, but very similar in ilk. And like I said, Hendrickson's possibly the best opportunity you would have as like a free agent splash to help come in as an edge rusher to help the defense. But I don't know. Like I said, patience has been preached by Howie. And I'm definitely going to do that because, again, this guy, like I said, outside of winning 2 Super Bowls, most of his free agent decisions work. So I'm not going to play that game as if, he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He doesn't know what he's doing. This is Howie Roseman. I trust him. Now, looking at cap space, as we currently are constructed right now, the Eagles are 23rd in the NFL in cap space right now. They currently have about $17.1 million available in cap space. Definitely enough money to still make another move. Not sure who, but definitely still enough money to make another move. And that's, keeping into account, you don't really have a bunch of holes to fill, but now you got some positions of depth that I think you're always going to have to sign. Because make no mistake, depth signings are always what could potentially derail a team from getting back to a Super Bowl or making a potential repeat run. Outside of that, I definitely wanted to touch on some other news and notes dealing with the Eagles. I didn't get a chance to even speak on new Eagles offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo. Kevin Patullo has been a guy who's been with Nick Sirianni for years. Definitely have a camaraderie and a feel for each other. He's going to ultimately be the offensive coordinator, first time being OC. But it seems like A.J. Brown, which I'll mention in a little bit, and some of the other offensive stalwarts have faith that he's going to handle his job accordingly. I think Brian Johnson handled his job accordingly. The problem is he didn't run the ball enough and the team collapsed. It's kind of striking that if you look at the offensive numbers and the rankings, they were actually slightly better a year ago than what they were this year, and they won a Super Bowl. So it just goes to show you numbers ain't everything. But nonetheless, also, too, outside of Kevin Patullo, the Eagles also added Scott Loeffler, from former head coach from Bowling Green, as their quarterback's coach. Definitely trying to add to Jalen's repertoire and add elements of the game that will make him comfortable. But I see where this is going. They're definitely trying to make it a switch up. Not a wholesale switch up, but a switch up from what they did last year to get better. The passing game definitely has to be better. Definitely has to be extra elements within the run game that's hasn't been accounted for yet. Just things to hit a nice little refresh to make sure that the offense doesn't go stale and you don't have a repeat of the 2023 season. Touching on some of the notable injuries and offseason surgeries, Landon Dickerson, knee surgery definitely was required. I believe he had it at this point, but he was needing knee surgery. Cam Jurgens had back surgery. Everything went successful. Looks like he'll be ready in time for training camp. Expected to make a full recovery. And also with A.J. Brown's comments, speaking on offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo and the elevation to have him. I mean, as you can see here on the screen, it only makes sense. It only makes sense. You don't want the offense getting stale. You don't want things getting stagnant. You just came off a victory. You're riding an immense high. Continue to get better. Continue to challenge yourself. Continue to add and improve on things that you didn't do well, even in the championship season, that would have helped and aided to the victory as well. I just like the approach that, A.J. Brown's taking. He's one of the captains on the team. He's taking a fresh approach to this. He's embracing the challenge. He's embracing the fact that this coach has never been an offensive coordinator ever in existence. Just primarily worked on offense. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it's big shoes to fill from Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore winning a championship in Philadelphia after being, unceremoniously, excuse me, damn, fucked that up 3 times, unceremoniously kicked out of the Dallas Cowboys organization, and then going to the Chargers and kind of waiting in the wind to see what would happen, and then Harbaugh eventually getting the job, coming to Philly, being accused of passing too much, and then leading ultimately to a championship and using the players and talent that he had available to win. So I get it. That was great, and I was fantastic and thankful for it. I always will be forever indebted for it. But I know with common sense, things were going to have to switch up to get better for this team to continue to advance, for these players to continue to grow and add things to their repertoire and to their bag to make the Eagles the complete threat and a consistent Super Bowl threat. Going further, Jeff Stoutland, right here you'll see on the screen, Jeff Stoutland spoke about making the Eagles offensive line room uncomfortable. Just speaking to his coaching prowess and the legend that he is and he has become in Philadelphia, outside of the college ranks of Alabama. Just speaking of how he makes the lineman room uncomfortable, and how you'll see in some of the quotes here that guys like Nick Gates were saying, like how, detailed and efficient and prepared you have to be, calling out signals, keeping your eye focused on the line, keeping a focus on what the quarterback and center are saying, attention to detail, just immense focus. The little things, and like I said, I implore you guys to definitely check out the article, it'll be in the description. But it's the little things, that help teams win championships, but help also offensive lines stay effective and dominant for long periods of time. Coming close to the end, we're going to talk about Brandon Graham. Definitely sucks for BG. BG retore his triceps in that Super Bowl victory against the Chiefs. Kind of lends to the belief that he's going to possibly retire. He's definitely not going to be ready for the 2025 season after re-tearing it. I think the whole goal was for him to go out with a bang and get that second ring. So if this was the case, hell of a career for my Brandon Graham. One of the guys who I definitely was pissed when he got drafted, because I thought that they should have grabbed Earl Thomas. And look how things played out. He outlasted Earl Thomas, and ultimately, Brandon Graham went out doing it his way, man. And I got to give a shout out to BJ. Hell of a player, dog mentality, personifies a lot of things that Nick Sirianni talks about. So credit to BG and the legend that he has become in Philadelphia. And now coming up on the end, you've heard me mention Howie Roseman a lot in this episode and a lot of things that we're talking about. And I'm going to implore you to check Howie Roseman's comments from the Combine, where he talked about a bunch of different things. One, definitely from his comments from the Combine, I definitely never felt like we were getting Myles Garrett, especially after the way he talked. Two, the Eagles will continue to use their draft philosophy to build this team, especially now with that philosophy and that plan working. I highly doubt that it's not going to work going forward. And the work doesn't stop. Saquon spoke about this at his press conference yesterday. Guys aren't going to kill themselves right now. They're going to let the body rest, but the work doesn't stop, especially to become repeat champions, to keep yourself in prime position to continue to be a winner. You have to continue to keep applying yourself to the task and continue to consistently and persistently challenge yourself. So Howie's preaching patience. I like a lot of things that he said. I think he really feels like that the young guys are going to have to play. And I think that especially with the contractual situations, that's true. So he's going to hopefully draft a lot of plug and play guys, which would be fantastic for the team, fantastic for this roster, and ultimately put this team back in position to compete for another Super Bowl. But that's going to do it, guys, for this Eagles recap episode. As more information comes out, I'll definitely have more things to post. As always, check out the show. Like I said, like, share, and subscribe. I love you guys for always staying plugged in. Take care and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.